Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Uh, Today I'm going to start with the practical research consideration. Before I get started, I need to revise within a 2 or 3 minutes. Uh, for instance, we are planning to start a research. So before I start my research, there are a couple of factors I need to work on. So the very first thing is we need to consider certain things. For instance, what about theory, then practical and the ethical issues? We need to learn all this stuff. In my previous lecture, I talked something about about theoretical approach or theoretical reconsideration. For instance, I'm planning to start a research, and before I start my research, I need to understand which kind of research I'm going to conduct. So when I decide I'm going to start this kind of research, so the very first thing I need to learn is which approach I'm going to opt. As I mentioned earlier in my previous lectures, there are a couple of approaches we have: positivism, interpretivism, and realism. So all these are called approaches, different approaches. So before I start my research, I need to understand which approach I'm going to opt. For instance, if I'm opting positivism, it means all my research will based on something scientific. It's all my base will be on statistical data. All my research will be working for subjectivity rather than objectivity. So this is the first thing. So before my research, I need to decide which approach I'm going to opt. This kind of issue is related to theoretical reconsideration. So first of all, when I decide about the approach comes in theoretical in theoretical consideration, right? And when I decide about the approach, then about the topic. Okay, if I'm taking this approach, obviously my topic will reflect this approach. Okay, when I decide the topic, okay, I'm going to take this topic, for instance. The topic requires certain a kind of again reconsideration. So which method I will use? I will go with the qualitative method or quantitative method. So I will talk about the methods. So you need to understand the sequence, the hierarchy I'm just talking about. First of all, for a research, just to start, no problem at all. Just to start, what I'm going to start, I'm going to start a research. Very first thing is the approach. We got three approaches: positivism, interpretivism, and realism. So you need to opt one approach. Okay, take for instance positivism. If I go with the positivism, next, what is the next step? I need to select my topic. Second thing is about the topic. I will take my topic, and while I'm considering about my topic, I need to understand if I will take this topic, the choice of topic, then it should be or it must be this kind of method. So first approach, second choice of topic, and thirdly and lastly, I need to understand which method I'm going to opt. Either it is qualitative or quantitative. So once I decide I'm going to take qualitative, for instance, then in qualitative I need to learn. In qualitative, it's all about expressions, it's all about behavior, it's all about the people interaction with each other. Okay, so interview must be there, a participant observation must be there. So this is a hierarchy: approach, topic, method, and in method, primary data collection or secondary. And if in primary, what I have an option, what option I have in it. So I need to work on this thing, right? So this is all about the theoretical consideration. No, today I'm going to start with the practical research consideration. No, I'm talking about the second thing, the practical issues. No, I'm going to start my research. I have already decided method, this. Practically, I'm going to start research. In practical research in consideration, first of all, we got the topic choice. Which topic I'm going to opt for my research? Practical consideration can influence a researcher's choice of topic in a number of ways. Large scale research carried out over a long period of time may be expensive. Those who commission and pay for it may have an important say in the choice of topic, method, and overall conduct of the research. In addition, in the UK and the USA, where government agencies or departments fund social research, it is usually to commission and fund research designed to help policymakers make decisions. Research that does not aid this process might not win funding. So according to this paragraph, it is important, and especially there is a trend, I mean, in UK and in the USA, the government, the agencies, and the different departments, they simply fund people or researchers to conduct research on specific issues. And normally, generally, most of the time, the research which will be funded by the government agencies or the departments, they simply reflect the social issues. So a person who is planning to research, obviously if he is going to have a research, a long time research, a large scale research, obviously it will take a lot of time, one thing. Second, it will take a lot of money. You require a lot of fund for that. So I mean, it is possible for my personal capacity, my personal I'm not able to conduct that long time consuming research. So obviously I'm bound to select my topic. For the topic selection, I need to work for agencies or the government departments and the university, because I need a lot of money, I need funding for that. So the funding is normally restricted to certain issues, and the issues are normally social issues, right? So a person who is have a desire to do some research, it depends. I mean, if he is a very rich person, he has a lot of money, he can do whatever he likes to. But the approach, if he is working for the social issue, then he will be able to get fund from government agencies, departments, or the universities. Time can be a practical consideration in terms of depth and scope of the research. Large scale longitudinal research, such as the Peterborough Adolescent Development Study 2002 to 2010, designed to understand how families, schools, communities shape young people's social development, can be time consuming to carry out and manage. The principal investigator in this, for example, Per Olaf Wikstrom is the name of the person who is going to conduct the research, had to manage a team of more than 30 students, investigators, and academic collaborators over a 10 years period. So see that, I mean, the example which is given here, it is all about there are so many people which are involved in the research. So it is very time consuming. Obviously it is time consuming, it is very expensive as well. So this kind of research cannot be done personally or solely, because I need a lot of assistance, right? So I mean, for instance, if I'm going this kind of research, obviously I'm very restricted, I'm bound to have a lot of funds, and for funding I need government agencies or universities. A researcher may know what topic they want to study, but it may not be possible to do so. This is the thing I mentioned earlier. I mean, you want to do something, but you are bound because you don't have that facilities on your own. A researcher may know what topic they want to study, but it may not be possible to do so. Two of the most important practical considerations when choosing a research topics are access to research subject individuals. We need sometimes a lot of assistance. Second, their cooperation in the research. Both of these factors may be denied. A researcher might choose to continue anyway by carrying out covert research. Goffman, for example, studied the patient and the medical staff in a US mental institution while posing as a member of the cleaning staff. I mean, he presented himself as a cleaning staff in the mental hospital for some research work. However, some argue that such research is ethically questionable. Obviously, because when you hide yourself, you simply, I mean, covert, na? You are covering your identity. So it is not reasonably good. It is a bit more you need to reconsider, I mean, your stance. But obviously I mean, you are bound to do so, because if you simply declare your stuff, your personality or your identity, that I'm this and I'm just watching and observing, there must be some sort of there must be hazard, obviously hazard as well, and hindrance as well, because people don't need to open up in front of you because they have some sort of shyness or reluctancy. Okay, we are not supposed to discover ourselves that we are doing this, or we have certain issues, right? So, problem of cooperation may be solved by sponsorship. A member of the group being studied vouches for and partners and protect the researchers. More cynically, perhaps problems of access and cooperation may explain why a lot of sociological research focuses on the activities of the powerless people who cannot say no, rather than the powerful who can and often do resist being studied. So there must be a factor which is involved. I mean, if you simply discover you simply hide yourself, I mean, there's something positive out of it, because if you simply disclose yourself, people are not that much cooperative to help you out. So in this kind of research, you need a lot of assistance, a lot of cooperative people, right? So through them you can simply conduct your research, but obviously it will take a lot of time. So time consumption is important. So for time consumption, you need a lot of people to support. Money funding problem, you need a lot of people to support, right? choice of the matter. No, first of all, we simply decided the topic. We have this kind of topic, as I mentioned in earlier, that you can we have an example of Goffman, who conducted research on mental institution, right? So second, the choice of method. So now we decide which kind of method we are going to use for that. I mean, qualitative method or quantitative method. So first, in everything, first you need to understand the choice of your topic. Once you decide with the choice of the topic, then on the next stage you will have to decide which method you are going to have. So researchers must deal with a range of practical issues in assessing how and why various methods are fit for the purpose of testing hypothesis or answering a research question. Dunican suggests fitness for purpose reflects how well the chosen research method is suited to the context of study. This is measured in terms of how well it is suited to answering the issues posed in the research question. We can use Venkatesh study to illustrate this idea. He originally began armed only with a questionnaire and a desire to learn more about the lives of poor black people. However, he asked only one question: how does it feel to be black and poor? So see that, I mean, as I mentioned, uh, you are ready to have a method. Which kind of method you're going to opt? For instance, I mean, if you opt qualitative, so obviously qualitative is all about your behavior, all about the depth study. So he simply, Venkatesh, we have a reference in it. I mean, he had a uh, we have an example for Venkatesh, and he simply delivered a questionnaire to the poor black people, and there was only one question written: how does it feel to be black and poor? So this a simple question having two you can say variable, poor and the color black, right? To understand what it was like, and he needed to experience it for himself. Choice of method is also affected by the practical consideration, such as the topic being studied. Some topics lend themselves more easily to one method than another. Quantitative methods are useful when the researcher wants reliable data to establish statistical relationship. So I mean, these kind of things which have studied so many times, statistical data, uh, 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 always it's reflect quantitative, right? An example of this is Kessler study of the relationship between the sponsorship and the small business performance, where the main objective was to test whether those who are sponsored are more successful than non-sponsored individuals. Alternatively, in the study such as Dickon and Lewiston 2004 analyze of the tourist behavior in Ibiza and Feliraca, a qualitative approach was more appropriate because of the nature of the research was more descriptive. So I mean, this kind of things you need to only learn the references, the things which are already we have discussed in the past. Time is another consideration because some methods are more time consuming than other. Participant observation may involve year of research. White spent around 4 years gathering extensive information about the behavior of one young gang in Boston, USA, and Venkatesh took around 8 years documenting the lives of the black residents, gang member and non-members alike, in a small area of Chicago. So, if we have the participant observation, we need a lot of time. Time is a very key factor. In the previous thing, I told you about the time consumption. Then we talk about the money consumption. So here we got two examples. It's White and Venkatesh. See that Venkatesh spent 8 years on a specific, a small gang of black people who are poor living in Chicago, and the White who took almost 4 years just to discover a gang in Boston, USA. So this is a lot of this kind of consideration means you need a lot of time to understand the exactly the reliable data, right? The amount of funding available may directly influence a researcher choice of method. Questionnaires are generally cheaper than in-depth interviews, with which in return may be cheaper than participant observation. This depends of the course on the size and the scope of the study. Okay, practical consideration are clearly important in the conduct of sociological research. If a researcher cannot gain access to research subject to administer questionnaire organize interviews, and experiments or participate in the behavior of a group, then other considerations are irrelevant. Similarly, if a researcher has neither the time nor the funding to support themselves through a year-long observational study, then once again this research avenue is closed. Once these initial issues have been overcome, a researcher faces another set of consideration, ethical issues relating to how the research should be carried out. So, in a nutshell, I can simply tell you about the practical consideration. In practical consideration, obviously, the very first thing is that the choice of topic. Which kind of topic you need to opt. One in the selection of the topic, again, funding and time consumption. This is important. And once you decide with the topic and you got a lot of funds, then it is important how long your research going to take. Second thing, so if the research long a lot of time, it take a lot of time, then again you need require a lot of people for that. You need a lot of supportive people for that. And if you get, so see, it's a time consuming, funds, and a lot of cooperative people. If you overcome all these problems, then still one more problem exists, and this is the ethical issues. How it is important to be morally strong, how it is important that how can you pierce through the private life of the people without their permission. So inshallah ta'ala, this thing we will discuss in our next lecture, and this is going to be the last consideration. First we call theoretical consideration, then today we have practical consideration, and in my next lecture inshallah we discuss a lot about the ethical research consideration. Jazakallah.